Oh, don't look now. Russ is cooking. The Steelers have one of the best offenses since he got inserted into the starting lineup in week number 7. How does he fare in a heavyweight battle against the Ravens and Jared Goff and company? That Lion squad trying to do something they haven't done in 70 years. We'll tell you what that is as we're imagining a dominant win against the Jags. Does it actually happen? Full details coming up here on Game Day Preview.
For the paycheck, step out on the field and hear the crowd roar.
Hey, embrace the moment. For the first place in the land. I think everything you got. It's time to hunt. What a throw! What a catch!
I'm in this for the love.
Shea makes the catch. The beast has been released.
I'm only in this for the
Check this out. Little old school and new school. Caleb and Tom Brady. Sign me up for what is actually happening in that conversation. Caleb maybe picking his brain on having a new offensive coordinator calling plays in his ear. That just one of the major storylines that we will be tracking week 11. Welcome to Game Day Preview. I'm Mike Yam, my good friend Steve Weich, Cynthia Freeland, the queen of numbers. Woo-woo. Week 11, we actually have some really interesting games today.
We already had a really good one too. This is a wonderful week of games.
Yeah, I think all of us, once again, I use the term heavyweight battle between you covered boxing for a good stretch of your
career. And this is not Mike Tyson, Jake Paul boxing.
No.
We're not doing that.
I feel like we could have a long conversation about what we witnessed on Netflix.
Amanda Serrano won. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
There you go.
She won. I don't know what happened.
But here's where we learn. Here's where I net out on it. Doesn't matter what his age is. I'm not getting in a ring with Mike Tyson. Win or lose. And they're like, everyone who's
I'm not getting in a ring with Amanda Serrano.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah. We will move on and we will talk a little NFL football because that is why you are here. We got some fantasy advice around the corner. We got projections and what could happen with Cynthia a little bit later. But let's take a look at some of these players who we expect to sit. And that's not a good thing for some teams. I think the Buffalo matchup, Amari Cooper certainly stands out to me. Want to see him out on the football field. No Dalton Kincaid.
Right. I was about to say, I think it's really important to say, we also know no Keon Coleman. So remember, that's also a key factor.
Amari Cooper's dicey as well.
We will be diving into that matchup in just a moment for a little bit more context on what is going on around the NFL. Mike Garafolo joins us right now. Mike, give me a sense. Davante Adams, who we saw on that board there, give me his playing status and what we can expect from him.
Yeah. Mike, Davante Adams is in for the Jets today. He had that stomach bug that was bothering him pretty much all week, started to improve as the week went on, was able to return to practice. Also had that designation for that wrist injury. I don't sense any great concern about that. So Adams eventually overcoming that stomach bug, feeling better. And if he's out there, he's going to play. Like, that's my next question was, okay, is this going to limit him? And they said, you don't limit Davante Adams. What they want to do is get him involved in earlier downs, first and second downs, feel like they've had some chunk plays that they have hit and others that were available on those downs. You don't want to have to just get them when it's 3rd and long or when you're trailing. I mean, they'd love to play from ahead against a Colts team that you can run the football against. So that's going to be a big part of what they do. If they can get Breece Hall going and start hitting Davante Adams on earlier downs, I think the Jets feel really good about their chances of taking this game today.
More, by the way, on this matchup. Steve Weich has a bold prediction from a Colts perspective still to come. San Francisco, not always good, man. Like, we've been tracking a lot of injuries for these teams. It felt like this team was starting to get healthy, and then here we go, caught with the injury bug again.
You're so used to George Kittle. We all are playing through things when he's listed as questionable. In this case, does not look great for Kittle with that hamstring injury that he has got going. He was listed as questionable. Yeah, we'll still call it a game-time decision, but we're leaning more towards the out for Kittle today against the Seahawks, which means Eric Saulbert's going to have to step up in his place. Now, they've got a ton of weapons. They've got Christian McCaffrey back. We saw what he was able to do with a full workload last week. So you've got the luxury of the riches that you have if you're the 49ers, but obviously not having Kittle both as a blocker and a receiver, a guy that can do so much after the catch Not ideal for the 49ers here, but the hope is that giving him the week off here will allow him to recover and feel better moving down the stretch with that hamstring.
Yeah, it's been tough to watch this Niners team, kind of the walking wounded here, and they put themselves in a little bit of a hole every game down the stretch, critical for San Francisco. Mike, you're the best man. Always appreciate the details as we focus our attention now on a game that all of us had circled before the season.
You're playing the best. I mean, the best of the best. That's what you want in this league.
We're going to have our hands full. This is a very good unit that we're about to face.
Greatness every step.
Make some plays, fly around, play for each other.
Super Cooper! His first catch as a Bill goes for 6. Good!
Everybody just step up a little bit and make plays.
4th and goal. Mahomes gonna walk in. Touchdown!
You know what this is? This is an angry cook.
Let's just kick. It's blocked! It's blocked! They're gonna stay undefeated!
Hey, win's the only thing that matters, man. That's it. We got to 8. Let's go get to 9.
Well, time for Road Warriors presented by Courtyard Marriott. This is a Kansas City squad, undefeated 9-0, 8 comeback wins. They're playing with fire every single week, and yet the defense is what's carried this team. I think there's some questions on offense.
Well, clearly some questions on offense because, the Chiefs, they're scoring at a lower number than they typically score. Patrick Mahomes is not putting up the numbers that he typically does, and they're playing a Bills defense, though, that's up and down a little bit. So can they run the ball in certain situations? It doesn't have to be a game like we saw Monday Night, Mike, where Kareem Hunt's running the ball 30 times, but they've got to score touchdowns when they get into the red zone, because we know this Bills team, last 4 games, they're scoring at least 30 points plus. That's not going to happen today, unless maybe they get some takeaways, but they don't have Harrison Butker. Remember, their kicker is out, and you talked about all these close games, 7-1 possession games, so they're going to have to get some touchdowns. Again, that's where I think Kareem Hunt is going to have to run the ball, and that's going to be the big question, Cynthia, is can they run the ball in the red zone and get touchdowns out of it? Something that's been very difficult for the Chiefs this year.
Well, you know what hasn't been difficult for the Chiefs? Their defense. Getting their defense going, being really effective. This is in part why they've been able to make those 8 wins turn into wins if they were comebacks, right? If you're looking at what's gone on specifically and then map that to where there are some potentially missing pieces for this Bills offense. So we know there's no Dalton Kincaid, so 12 personnel, those 2 tight end sets, they're going to look different. Maybe there's like a Dawson Knox play there for fantasy, but for real life football, it's going to change your ability to run. Yep. It's going to change your ability to pass. It's especially if there's no Amari Cooper, then what? It's just Khalil Shakir or nothing. I mean, there also is some other people there, but ultimately, I'm very curious to see how this top-notch defense adjusts to some of the things that's going on with this offense and some of the missing pieces, because you still got to deal with Josh Allen. But if you turn Josh Allen over, that's the key to making sure that you give yourself a chance on offense, too.
Yeah. And generally speaking, Josh has done a really good job this season not turning the football over. The last couple games, we've seen some interceptions, but running the game, the run game is probably going to be huge.
Tough matchups for the Bills this week.
It is. We are not done talking about this game. We'll dive a little bit deeper a little bit later here on Game Day Preview. There is another huge matchup, though. It's the Ravens and the Steelers. TJ Watt, by the way, 16 career sacks against the Ravens, most by any player against Baltimore since 2017. For a little bit more, here's our Cam Wolf.
There's nothing like Steelers-Ravens. I just talked with Ravens defense coordinator Zach Orr, who said there was real hate in this rivalry when I played, and I think it's coming back. Minka Fitzpatrick, the Steelers safety, told me this is the one that matters the most. It's hard to have a good season without beating the Ravens. Well, the one matchup I'm keying on today, Lamar Jackson versus the Steelers defense. They have been the kryptonite to Lamar's superhero, really winning 7 of 8 against the Baltimore team. And Lamar believes the mental development that he's as a passer can help him. He's got to have something for TJ Watt, who has 7.5 sacks against him in the last 4 games. One injury nugget to watch. Jalen Warren, the Steelers running back, is active and good to go despite a back injury. He'll form that backfield with Najee Harris.
All right, Cam, I think about what Russ has done. I mentioned off the top of the show he's cooking, and it wasn't just because I like to say Russ is cooking. Top 6 right now.
Everybody likes to say Russ is cooking. Yeah.
Top 6 scoring offense, top 6 total offense since he got inserted into this lineup back in week number 7 here. Why is there another level to what we're seeing this season from the Steelers?
Well, we talk about those moonshots. We talk about the deep ball. Well, Russell Wilson, since taking over, Pittsburgh Steelers have generated the 4th highest catch rate over expected, the 4th most yards per target, and the 5th most receiving EPA on deep attempts. Those are all good things. That's all to say. The deep ball's really working
Yes.
since Russell Wilson got there. Turns out, when you got a guy who likes to throw it deep, and you have George Pickens, who's the most animated person maybe in the
So
entire
good.
league. Go watch on like the NFL Pro Film Room after. Every single play is like pounding his hands on the floor. He looks like kind of like a toddler, but in the best way possible. I want him mic'd up.
And he's doing it. And the thing is, he's really got an opportunity to do it against
the
Ravens today.
defense.
I mean, the Ravens pass defense. I mean, you seriously have to ask the questions. We asked this earlier this week with Greg Rosenthal on the NFL Daily Podcast. Is it going to get any better? Because we have not seen improvement yet this season. And the players continue to talk about, well, we know what we have to do. It's usually a communication issue. They're getting scorched in the passing game, and you're seeing receivers and quarterbacks find the one-on-one matchups. Here you're seeing poor tackling. That's something you do not see out of the Ravens, and it has been a consistent theme throughout the season. That's got to be driving everybody crazy, and that's what the Steelers, Pickens we're talking about. Look at his yak now since Russ has come in. I mean, his yards after contact have been fantastic, Cynthia. So, again, if the pressure does not get at Russ early, he's going to have an opportunity to go big today.
If there's one thing I know about Dean Pease, he will look at the splits, and Russell Wilson does have some mean man and zone splits.
Right.
And the types of zones that are not good for Russ, he hasn't seen many of them this season. So if the Ravens are going to turn it around, or I'm not going to say they're going to go from being what they are now to like one of those storied Ravens defenses in one game. But ultimately, I think if they can get just a little bit of an edge on some of those concepts versus man and zone, maybe we could see Russ have a harder day at the office.
Yeah, they pick some bad time. They have picked some bad
I'm just
times to
saying.
come off of doubles and stuff like
Exactly.
that. And they get exploited. And it has happened since week one.
By the way, I'm just going to point this out there. This is a Baltimore Ravens team that could win a Super Bowl this year. The Steelers are a team that certainly are in that conversation. We're talking about a Russell Wilson Steelers offense, and we haven't even name-checked Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry.
Oh, we will.
I promise. That is still to come here on Game Day Preview.
It's a big one, prime time, and we know we got to go win it.
Let's go. What a catch!
There's a lot of different ways that a receiver can tell you to get me the ball.
Chase makes the catch. Hammered into the end zone.
F it, Lamar's down there somewhere.
Touchdown, 70 yards.
Doesn't mean that it's forgiven this.
Who got it better than us?
Last time I checked, those two dudes really can play. Here's a closer look at the AFC playoff picture. And yes, not a huge surprise here. We just talked about Chiefs and Bills. We know what the Steelers are capable of doing as the Ravens. But how about this Chargers team? 90% chance of making the playoffs with a win today, 69% with a loss. It'd just be their third postseason trip in the last 10 years. Hard not to focus in on these quarterbacks. And for as much as we want to talk about talented signal callers, Joe Burrow is playing some of the maybe that's Joe.
It beeps every 5 minutes whenever Joe Burrow does something great. It's just always beeping.
Probably more than every 5 minutes then, because he's been that good this season.
Oh, he's been incredible. I think because of the win total, and sometimes people mistakenly believe that wins are a quarterback stat. They are not.
They're not.
Wins are not a quarterback stat. But if you're looking to see how great he's been, let's just talk about like scrambles for a second, right? He has the second most touchdown passes off of scrambled. He has the seventh best success rate when scrambling. I don't necessarily think of him as a scrambling quarterback, but it is working for him this particular season. When he connects with Jamar Chase.
Oh, my gosh.
Ridiculous things happen. If you're looking at the opportunity on deeper passes, so 10-plus air yard passes, they've connected at a rate that's 30 percentage points higher than when he's targeted any of his other pass catchers on these deeper passes. That is a stupid number. And if you look at what happens with Jamar Chase when he faces zone defense, it looks like a fake number. It is so ridiculous.
Well, look, I'm glad you mentioned Joe Burrow and scrambling, because sometimes scrambling isn't something you opt to do.
Nope.
It's out of necessity.
You gotta.
It is out of necessity.
Running for your
and
life.
They may not have Orlando Brown today at tackle. So this is a situation where you look at what Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack and Tuli Tuipulotu have been doing up front.
Say it again.
Tuli Tuipulotu.
Do it again.
Marlon Tuipulotu.
I
We
love
can
it.
keep on going.
I just gotta. It's hard. I need to keep learning it from you. I get scared every time I see it.
There we go. But they've got linebackers who can run, right? And then on the back end, they're playing a lot of. I saw a great report. So the big nickel with Derwin James or something, and they've got some hitters in there. They might have to not go the big nickel because of the Jamar Chase threat, but the Chargers defense is arguably the best defense in the NFL. We're not talking about them.
Yeah.
And they get after the quarterback. I frankly think this is a bad matchup for the Bengals because Joey B is going to have to hit the explosive plays because the Chargers are going to bog things down on offense. They're going to burn clock, and they're going to force those big shot opportunities that the Bengals have to hit. And if they don't, it could be a long day.
I think it's a great point. I don't know what gives in this game. They are the #1 scoring defense. Each of the last 3 weeks, they are setting season highs in sacks, 5, 6, and then 7. That's a problem. But then Joe Burrow just delivers against top-ranked defenses.
I'm going to raise a little tiny flag here and say that some of the opponents they face may not be the most hardest, great English, Cynthia, most hardest opponents in the National Football League.
No, 100%.
They haven't seen a quarterback playing at the level that Joe Burrow in this offense. But just put it out.
That's a great point.
It's absolutely good context, by the way. 7-2, 17 passing touchdowns, 1 interception against top 5 scoring defense. That's what Joe Burrow does. Delivers in those clutch moments.
Bing! Oh, it's my phone. It's Joe Burrow doing something good again.
Yeah, that's kind of what it comes down to. By the way, you just name-checked Derwin James. Doing some good things here. Time for Salute to Service presented by USAA. Yes, Derwin actually experienced a day in the life of a Coast Guardsman at the U.S. Coast Guard Sector San Diego. Derwin soared over the skies in a Coast Guard helicopter, plunged into the ocean. How cool is that? To experience the type of training that the Coast Guard conducts to keep our seas safe to those who serve in the air, on land, or sea. USAA and the NFL, we all say thank you.
He looks so happy.
Yeah, he looks like he's having a good time. By the way, I've never seen him smile on the football field.
No.
Just straight intimidation.
Yes.
Jordan Love, a closer look at his opponents, the Chicago Bears. We got a report still around the corner, and hopefully he's not turning the ball over. A little bit more here on Game Day Preview. Changes in Chicago this week. 0-3 after the bye. They fired their offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron. A tough task with the Packers in town. Stacey Dales has more on the massive change.
The big news here in Chicago for these Bears, Shane Waldron fired as offensive coordinator. Thomas Brown stepping in. Matt Eberflus making that decision final on Tuesday. I am told by a couple of coaches here as they get ready to face their rival Packers that they had an outstanding week of practice. It was very spirited. And one of the big messages to rookie quarterback Caleb Williams, just go out there and let it rip. Less tentative play. They want that confidence to come back, and it has never wavered. Matt Eberflus told us that this week. He would like more creativity in the offense and to get playmakers into open space. As for the Packers, Jordan Love, I'm told, finally healthy, coming off the bye, had his best week of practice in recent memory. The Packers ready to go. They've won 10 in a row, remember, against the Chicago Bears, hoping to continue that trend today.
Stacey, to your point, last time the Bears beat the Packers, Week 15, 2018. Caleb Williams, still a sophomore in high school. So it has been a minute here. Cynthia, I know you're smiling right now because, yes, your Lions. Who
I don't care what it is right now. I need it to be Week 18, and then I'm worth it. I can't. We are way too early to be like smiling about that.
No, I'm with you here, but let's focus in here on a Chicago team that hasn't had a touchdown pass with Caleb Williams since that bye. That's 3 straight games here. What does a change at the offensive coordinator spot mean for this offense?
Well, hopefully it means that we can take some of the things that Thomas Brown did with his history with the Rams. So he was he was on the offensive side of the ball. He was
assistant head coach.
Assistant head coach, thank you. For 2 seasons, including one where he won the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Now, what are the principles of McVay offense? Well, you know who knows that pretty well is the Packers, but whatever. But that tree shows you a little bit different run concepts. They're stronger. They stay true to them, even if they don't necessarily look very sexy, as in they're not breaking explosive plays. But also, the use of 12 personnel. The Bears right now are one of 2 teams that when they use 12 personnel, the 2 tight end sets, they actually have more rushing yards than more passing yards per play. That is weird. Usually you get more passing yards per play just in general. But this could be an area where maybe they just do a few of those shorter, quicker passes because the Packers are not good at defending those types of passes.
And I'm so glad you mentioned 12 personnel because one thing that Thomas Brown did with the Rams, he was a tight ends coach. He was a running back coach and tight ends coach. That's going to help the quick game, right? One thing that also worked for Caleb early that they got away from was tempo. When they would go no huddle at times and they'd get him into a rhythm, get it going, I think that you're going to see some of that. Another thing that Thomas Brown's going to add is a little motion just to help Caleb with the pre-snap, determining what the defense is going to do. But let's not forget, Thomas Brown's a former NFL running back. The run game is his specialty. That's a great way to take some pressure off of your quarterback. You're going to see him run the ball a little bit more.
Yeah, by the way, game pick on this matchup still to come here. We will stick in the division with the Detroit Lions. Everyone's sort of looking up, maybe even in the NFL, at this team. Amon-Ra St. Brown, a big reason why, continues to find his way into the end zone. Going to be tough sledding for the Jags. Tom Pelissero is in Detroit.
The Jaguars come here to Detroit as 13.5-point underdogs. That is the widest betting margin of any game this season. I got a text from Coach Doug Peterson who told me his message to players last night was just cut it loose and have fun. You got to believe that you can win as a team. Lions are on a 7-game winning streak themselves. Will not have tight end Sam Laporta today. They do get Za'Darius Smith, the pass rusher they acquired at the trade deadline. He'll make his debut, play about 25 to 40 snaps. Not going to be easy for Jacksonville. No Trevor Lawrence today. It will be Mac Jones in his second start instead. Cam?
Ooh, uphill battle right now for this Jags team, and it only gets worse. Za'Darius Smith, I was sort of geeked up to see him make his debut on Sunday Night Football. Didn't happen, but he's playing today.
Yeah, I mean, we did talk about the pitch count. Tom Pelissero referred to it. But even in this pitch count, I'm very curious to see how this guy, we got to talk about this jersey here in a second, but how he folds into a team that has blitzed a lot more often without Aiden Hutchinson. They are #1 on 3rd down right now. I want to see if they can stay strong against the run, how things unfold and look a little bit different formation and strategy-wise when folding him in, because obviously the defense kept them in this game last week. That game was wild, and the fact that the Lions were even able to be in the position to have that sort of field goal win the game was because of the defensive play. So when I'm looking at this, I want to see exactly what goes on. And by the way, I don't know if we're going to talk about it in a second here, but we need to talk about that jersey in a minute.
The Rasheed Wallace jersey.
Rasheed.
So we legitimately here inside baseball before every show, there is a real old school NBA conversation.
Yeah.
I worked covering the NBA for a long time. Steve, you did it for years.
7 years, yeah.
The amount of stories, and we were talking about the Pistons. That's the craziest part about this. Before we even know, that Smith was rolling up in one of these jerseys.
I mean, I don't mean to jump in here, but you know this. This is just my team. This is the one I know the most about. 2004 team, 2005 finals. This is a team that traded mid-season for Rasheed Wallace. And you know what they did in that 05 finals? Oh, they just won. They beat the Lakers, who were absolutely favored, way ahead of them, and they beat them in 5, Steve. They beat them in 5.
I was there. I
know,
covered that series. We don't have time for that story, but one thing about Zadarius Smith, though, I know they're trying to get the pass rush. He's the threat, but he is a brick house edge setter in the run game, and that's really going to help this defense. But I'm going to go to a report that our Ian Rappaport had earlier today saying that the Jaguars, they could clean house from general manager to head coach Trent Baalke to head coach Doug Peterson to other coaches on the staff should they lose this game. So in other words, they're just telegraphing that at some point they're going to clean house. That's not really a big secret in NFL circles. To do it now means they're getting a head start, right? Let's go ahead and let's hold it down, do whatever we're going to do the rest of the year. But let's start getting some other coaches on the radar. Things they could do in the shadows anyway if they keep Doug Peterson. But this is really going to be tough sledding, for the Jaguars today and the rest of the year. So it is what it is.
You are one of the absolute best and even though you're so young, you must have been doing since you were 2, but you've been in this league a long time.
Yeah.
And I want to know, when you how often do you see it telegraphed like this versus the shadow?
Well, I mean, look, this is the Jaguars. They've telegraphed it before, but you can see their record and just the tenure of everything. When Shad Khan, the owner, says, this is the most talented team I've put together, and you've only won 2 games, that's your telegraph right there.
Yeah, and if Ian's right, by the way, and your season and your job security hinges on your backup quarterback going up against arguably the best team in the NFL.
Oh, that makes me feel mean. The Lions aren't really mean like that.
No.
We're nice. We're nice.
They are physical up front. Just one other note here. Didn't Smith remind you more of like the Ben Wallace build? I'm just saying. Lamar.
All of them in one.
I don't know what his NBA comp is, but he is slippery and he might win another MVP. Oh, here we go. The Saints will get another win here. Snapped the NFL's longest losing streak with 7 games with that win against Atlanta last week. Darren Rizzi got to make his interim head coach debut. And on the Off the Edge podcast, Cam Jordan actually weighed in on his new coach.
Darren Rizzi takes over this past week, and automatically he starts changing everything from the locker configuration to how we sit in meetings, how active we're in the meetings. We spent more time going through walkthroughs than focusing on the length of film. Rizzi came in and was like, look, whatever we thought was going to work hasn't been working. We got to shake things up to see if this is going to be our way. And came in and ain't no status quo. He came in was like status on go. I just feel like as a interim head coach to come in and get a win, it does nothing but it's a buy-in for sure from the guys, from the city, from the organization, and just from the commitment from Darren Rizzi. I mean, he comes in and this is what we're going to do and does it. So it's easy to buy in when you win.
Rizzi, by the way, the pride and joy of Bergen Catholic High School in New Jersey.
There you go. There you go, brother.
So just a big smile on my face with that one. But this Saints team, first 2 weeks of the season, we're like, damn, like they might be Super Bowl bound the way this offense is rolling here. Nice to see them get back in the win column.
Absolutely. Last week, we actually saw Derek Carr average more yards per attempt than he did over the course of those first 2 weeks. I know it's a small sample size, but it was really fun to see this deep offense working. Did anyone have it on their bingo card that we were going to get Marquez Valdez-Scantling twice in the end zone? Maybe not. Maybe once.
No.
But I thought that was a really fun game to watch. But you're looking in this one, and for fantasy purposes, I would just probably stick to the guys like Alvin Kamara. Like stick with that one and be smart.
Look, let's not kid ourselves. They won that game because Younghoe Koo missed some field goals. Atlanta dominated that game, which is why I think in the Jameis Winston Bowl, the return of Jameis Winston to New Orleans, I think Cleveland coming off a bye has an opportunity to fix some things here. And I do think, look, you saw the spike and emotion and all that stuff that the Saints played with. They're going to have to play with that in a little bit more because, again, the Browns are a team that's got some talent. You have some injuries. They're missing some. But they're a playoff team last year. And Jameis Winston coming back to where he is loved in the city. Where isn't Jameis loved? That's
a good point.
But I just think this is a chance for the Browns defense to cause some problems for the Saints and to probably get some takeaways here.
Better interview, Darren Rizzi or Jameis Winston?
Jameis.
Yeah.
I don't know. Darren Rizzi last week
Rizzi's
had us.
pretty good. Let's give him a couple more extra reps, and maybe we'll lean towards Rizzi's way. All right, time for Rookie Watch, presented by New Era. Who's your rookie?
Bo Nix.
Oh, yeah.
You talk about the Falcons.
Yep.
I think this week in Denver, this is an opportunity for Bo Nix to take even one more step forward. Last week, it's this vaunted Kansas City Chiefs defense, and you know what happened? Lots of good things. I mean, they were right there. They had to miss a field goal in order to lose that game. But the connection with him and Cortland Sutton, sometimes we roll our eyes at the beginning of the season when coaches are like, we're going to do it right. We're going to use his legs strategically and only ask him to throw easy passes and then make him harder. And then we're all like, okay, Sean, that'd be great. Obviously an ideal world. Well, you know what's happened? Exactly what Sean told us would happen. And now he's throwing outside the numbers and deep. And Cortland Sutton, that's one of my favorite fantasy plays in the entire day.
Yeah, I know you've been impressed. You saw him up close and personal a couple weeks ago when the Broncos were in Baltimore against the Ravens. They didn't win that game, but first thing you said to me when you got back to the studio was
Bo Nix is real.
Bo Nix can go and play. One of the other matchups that we're keeping a close eye on in the division, we got the Seahawks hosting the San Francisco 49ers. Brock Purdy's, I don't know if he's got that pixie dust this season. They're winning some games, but they've also been pretty banged up. What should I be focused in on in his game? Well,
Cynthia said earlier that wins aren't necessarily a quarterback stat. Brock Purdy has been having a great season. He's got some of the least number of passing attempts of any quarterback in the top 20, yet he's up there in top 6 in yards, completion percentage, yards per attempt. I mean, this is a great game because Geno Smith has been one of the top passing leaders in the NFL all season, but he's got almost a 1-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, 11-10. That's not good. Brock Purdy's not nearly on that type of spectrum, so he might not have George Kittle today. But again, this is where Juwan Jennings, Christian McCaffrey comes in. This is going to be a very, very tough game between two teams that have got to get the win to keep up with the Arizona Cardinals in the division.
It is wild that we are talking about an Arizona squad with Kyler Murray and James Conner. That offense right now and that defense balling in such a meaningful way. But once again, the Seahawks in the Bay Area against the Niners. I don't know if I just name dropped Seattle instead, but it will be in San Francisco. Time for Who Scores. It is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. So on this game, you sort of see some of the characters. Steve just made reference to Brock Purdy and what we could potentially potentially see from him. Threw for 353 last week against the Bucs, but who do you like to score, Cynthia?
I mean, Christian McCaffrey. Obviously, when you get one of, if not the best players in football back, and you get him in his second game last week, you could see them re-enter. You could see that explosiveness was coming back. But I think in this division game that is going to be really important to them, especially should George Kittle not be able to go. You talk about red area. The red zone is now rebranded to the CMC zone. So I think Christian McCaffrey is a really as lucky as you can get.
You nailed that one.
Yeah, you know, Cynthia had made reference to Christian McCaffrey getting into the end zone. I'm thinking about the Falcons and what, you know, maybe who scores in that game. Drake London's your guy?
Well, Drake London's the guy. I mean, look, he's someone, all he does is pretty much score touchdowns. He got 6 TD receptions, only had 2 games this season without 6 catches. There's your fantasy play if you're looking for a wide receiver right there as well. But even if he's got a stud on him like Patrick Surtain, a big corner, his size at 6'5", you're seeing him make the contested throws. Kirk Cousins clearly loves him. Darnell Mooney's a little banged up, so I think Drake London's going to be a big play today.
Yeah, do not forget, DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns this season. And this week, new customers can bet $5 and pocket $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the app and use promo code GAME when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. All right, Cynthia, it's your guy. Let's go, David Montgomery. Something tells me if you want to talk about a guy who could find the end zone today, he would also be on the short list.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm just put on the little pads over your knees. What is this new trend? The short shorts for these guys. It's making me nervous. I am shaking my fist at them, and I'm an old lady.
He's still a tough guy, though.
Stay safe.
Back here on Game Day Preview, the Packers on the road in Chicago. We talked a little bit about the Bears and a new offensive play caller We know that Shane Waldron is out. We'll see if Josh Jacobs is going to be able to take advantage of some opportunities in that matchup for a little bit more and what that could mean from a fantasy perspective. Yeah, we'll go through some of those running backs. It is my guy, Michael F. Florio, who also has a pretty good jumper as well. If you're not checking out his start sit-ems on NFL.com, you are making a big mistake. But, Mike, always good to have you with us. I do want to talk quarterbacks with you and go through the list of guys that you think are worth the start and the list of players who you think should be sitting on a fantasy bench right now. We spent a lot of time talking Brock Purdy as well as Russell Wilson. So I'm going to table that conversation for just a minute. Geno Smith's been putting up some pretty good numbers, but you think still a sit at San Francisco. But why is Sam Darnold against the Titans also one of those players that you think should be riding the bench?
Yeah, I think Sam is a player you could potentially get away from this week because last week he struggled against the Jaguars in what was the best quarterback matchup entering the week. He has 5 interceptions in his last 2 games. Now he's playing the Titans, who've allowed the fewest passing yards in the NFL this season. And you mentioned Russell Wilson. He's one of the quarterbacks I'd play over him. So are Bo Nix, Matt Stafford. I even like the upside that Drake May brings this week. Those are just some quarterbacks I feel more comfortable starting this week than Sam Darnold.
I'm liking Sam Darnold a little bit more than Florio, in large part because there's no L'Jarius Sneed.
Right.
And if you look at the splits with and without Sneed, it's ridiculous. Like his completion percentage over expected goes from -8 and then to +8. Like that's a massive swing. The yards per attempt allowed goes up 1.6 yards. Expected point added, like all of these things that really help for fantasy. Plus, there's this guy named Justin Jefferson there, and he's pretty good. He hasn't grittied in the league, so ultimately, I think that I don't think a guy has 2 outings like that on a team of this caliber.
All right, we will find out how it plays out for Sam Darnold against a Titan squad. Meanwhile, as it pertains to the running backs, we'll talk a little bit more about Bills and Chiefs with James Cook. Got to imagine that he's one that you want to have in your starting lineup. The name that's catching my eye in the Sinem column, Najee Harris, because he has played well, but we get it. The Baltimore defense, especially up front, certainly strong. Mike, make the case for Chase Brown for me.
I don't think I need to make the case. I think Chase Brown has been making his own case every week. He's played over 80% of the snaps in his last 2 games. In his last 5 games, he is averaging 20 opportunities per game, which is absolutely elite volume. Since week 5, 17 fantasy points per game. That is an elite RB1. You would not get away from a player like that. Plus, I know the Chargers on paper look like a tough matchup, but since week 6, they are allowing nearly 5 yards per carry and have allowed the highest rate of explosive runs by running backs. And we know if Chase Brown is anything, he is explosive. So despite the matchup, I still really like Chase Brown this week.
Kyren Williams is a name who's, and Steve, you and I were doing the Monday Night Postgame show on NFL Network, and a little surprised by a production that dipped in that particular matchup. What do you make of it, Cynthia?
I mean, I think he sees the end zone again against the Patriots. He hasn't gone there, 3 times on the ground, hasn't happened. 2 times he hasn't had a touchdown in 2 games. But ultimately, this is an opportunity against the Patriots. The front of this defense for the Rams is so strong. So if you run the football, you pass strategically, and you just kind of nicely tie up that bow so that you don't have to be in a situation where a Drake May, interesting, fun situation for us to watch, but not if you're a Rams fan, could happen. So Kyren Williams, end zone.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Down 2 linemen.
Yeah.
Down 2 starters.
You know what? Look, we could talk about.
But he scored all his touchdowns when they were missing their starters.
You got an interesting take on that game, which we will get to in just a bit here.
Are you
Yeah, he might be rolling with the Patriots.
You can't see him right now, but he's looking like a man who's picking an upset. Just saying.
Coy smile from one Steve Weiss. Here are the wide receivers, your starts and your sits. Deontay Johnson. Mike, you're parking him on the bench. Why? All right, sounds like we might have lost.
I think he's parking him on the bench because the Ravens have parked him on the bench.
I think this is where they roll him out, though. You're playing against your old team. You want to show us if you're going to be a Raven? You got what it takes to play in the big game, kid? Play against your former team.
I don't think they need to do it against their old team. They got a couple of really good offensive players that, if he's ready, fine. If you need him, fine. But
in fairness, this isn't a great week for wide receiver play in terms of what's going on league-wide. There's some people that are on buys. So if you are looking for one, I just don't think he falls below the area where you would be sitting him.
Yeah, depends also, too, just in terms of the depth of your league. And sometimes
Correct.
You got a guy that's banged
I'm not
up.
saying he's wide out 1.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe one of those flex spots. Time for Who's Eatin' Good. Let's get that snack going. It's presented by Applebee's. Devon Achane, here we go. A little offense, and he's not slow.
No, he's very speedy, and the Raiders are still missing pieces. Christian Wilkins didn't walk through that door in their bye week. I know a lot changed on their offense. We got some new game plan on the offense, but I don't know if they have the antidote to him. Robert Spillane will tackle him, but it'll be after, 12, 13 yards. Spillane's great.
Signal with the first down signal right behind the tackle.
Right, yeah, but this is the thing, like the pairing of him and Tua. We talk about like wide receiver and quarterback duos. I'm talking about a running back and quarterback duo. I think the two of them together, especially in the middle, run away from Max Crosby. That is the strategy. That actually, Mike just called and told me, hey, coach, oh yeah, they're gonna run it away from Max Crosby.
Smart.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
By the way, this Miami team needs this one in the worst way.
Yeah, and look, if they get it, okay, now we need to turn our attention back down to South Florida, Mike. We talked about it Monday night. They've got the talent. They feel they've got some momentum to get it going. The defense played a little bit better last week. That's really been the Achilles heel once Tua's come back. They tighten things up. They can make it interesting down the run.
Zach Sealer, baby.
Yeah.
So good.
He's been a stud.
If they figure out a way to get into the postseason, we will look at that Monday night matchup as the turning point of the entire season. To go on the road, across the street at SoFi Stadium, beat a Rams team where the arrow looked like it was pointing up, and maybe it still is, unless you're Steve Wyche and you like the Patriots. More on that still to come. Just something to keep in mind. But Achane, for you, a guy that we need to make sure is
He's eating good.
Starting lineup.
He's eating good.
Yes, he will be eating good. You know who another RB1 is, who you just got to make sure is always in your lineup? Oh, the King!
Yeah.
Just continues to tear it
Way
up.
to go out on a limb, Mike.
I know. Well, look, let me just say this. Ravens, to me, I pick them every single week. Their roster's just loaded.
I also picked Christian McCaffrey earlier, so I can't make fun of him for it.
Who's scoring? CMC. Yes,
Christian McCaffrey.
He is.
You want to get that hard-hitting news here.
We'll reset the biggest matchups. It's coming up next here on Game Day Preview.
playing the best. I mean, the best of the best. That's what you want in this league.
We're going to have our hands full. This is a very good unit that we're about to face.
Greatness every step. Make some plays, fly around, play for each other.
Super Cooper! His first catch as a Bill goes for 6. Good!
Everybody just step up a little bit and make plays.
4th and goal. Mahomes gonna walk in. Touchdown!
You know what this is? This is an angry cook. Let's just kick. It's blocked. It's blocked. They're gonna stay undefeated.
Hey, win's the only thing that matters, man. That's it. We got to 8. Let's go get to 9.
All right, once again, this is one of those games. Last couple years, you say Chiefs and Bills, like this is must-see television.
I want to be in Orchard Park, right?
Right.
I mean, I want to. It'd
And
be
look,
so much fun.
and you're always around this team, especially in the preseason. You're on the sidelines calling a bunch of these games over the last couple seasons or so. You had mentioned this before. We know that there's some injuries right now, right? I mean, no Dalton Kincaid, Amari Cooper right now banged up. Keon Coleman, their rookie wide receiver, not out there. Give me the playmaker. How does this offense really survive without names like that?
Well, first of all, if Spencer Brown doesn't go, that's their right tackle. Then we're like, circling the wagons. You really got to do some extra circles this time. But I'm watching to see, like, the straw that stirs the drink in this particular matchup is going to have to be James Cook. They're just really going to have to rely on him because they're missing pieces. Now, Dawson Knox has a great opportunity if you're looking at where he runs routes, when he does run routes, against a defense that has been very generous to opposing tight ends. But a lot of that's going to have to come in situations where Khalil Shakir is going to have to be in the slot looking a little like, oh, is it going to be Shakir or is it going to be Knox? Uh-oh, I don't know. And then thirdly, you're going to have to get the James Cook factor in there being like, well, maybe it's actually handoff to James Cook. We don't know. So they're going to need to at least appear multiple on every single play so that they stay off balance with the Chiefs defense, because the Chiefs defense, you know, they added Josh Uche. It's not like they're sitting there getting more injured, and they're great at the linebacker level. So it's going to have to be Joe Brady cooking up some. But I will say, the Bills have had this circled for like however many days we've now known the schedule. This means a lot to them. Like this is that rivalry. We are so lucky as fans that we get to see Patrick, we get to see Josh, we get to see Patrick, Josh, Patrick. It's great every single time. They each like get better every single time we see it.
Because the injury's a wide receiver, you could see Trent McDuffie actually traveling with someone like Shakur, and so it's 10 on 10. In that way, and you know, you mentioned James Cook, and I think this is important because it's going to be James Cook and Josh Allen having to run the ball. You may not strategically want to run Josh Allen, but you have to set up the Chiefs to do so. And then James Cook, you see him there with some of the cutbacks, some of the things he can do. The only problem is this is the team that has inside linebackers that matches up perfect. Nick Bolton and Drew Tranquil can run, right? They can come up. They play with physicality. They've also got some safeties and Justin Reed who can come up. Now, look, we've seen Josh Allen do his thing against the Chiefs before. He's just that special. We've seen some of the most classic games in this. But again, I just think now with the way that the Chiefs are constructed defensively, they match up better. But you also said this is Buffalo's Super Bowl right now. The Chiefs are like, we get this every week. You know, you're a talented team, but teams are coming after us every week. That's why we're playing these one-possession games. That's why teams are doing certain things against us. So, again, the importance of this game to Buffalo might be a little bit more than Kansas City, who's basically just trying to secure home field advantage.
And not for nothing, I understand that the weather I Googled, it doesn't appear to be bad, but the weather can change in Buffalo in 1 second. And that kicking game can be a very important and impactful part. Should the lack of, there's no real starting kicker come into play, like that could be difficult. It is something, I have been there in you can have all 4 seasons in one day. I mean, it's basically a Midwestern city, even though it's Western New York, but you can have the wind kick up, even if it's not something that's really in the forecast. Like, who knows, man? That's a crazy.
Yeah, no Harrison Bucker, Spencer Schrader kicking. Kansas City plays in some awkward weather conditions as well. So we'll see.
I know, but there's something about that particular moment when you're playing on the road and you are now starting for the first time. Your team is 9-0, looking to stay undefeated. Like, that feels like a lot of pressure.
The only one thing I want to add here, because you're right, this does feel like Buffalo's Super Bowl. We have been tracking this story for a few weeks here, like this pursuit of perfection. It was one thing with the back-to-back-to-back Super Bowls for Kansas City. They got 4 teams right now with winning records remaining on their schedule, including this Buffalo squad. Then they got the Chargers, the Texans, and Pittsburgh. This one, you're kind of shaking your head here. You're not worried about navigating this?
No. I actually think, although I will say I think it's better for them not to try to remain undefeated. I think they're better off just saying, like, let's just get that first round bye and then let's go on.
If they're going to lose, they don't want to lose this one because, again, when it comes to home field, you do not want to be a tiebreaker disadvantage. So that's a big thing.
But the Bills' schedule remaining is harder than the Chiefs' schedule remaining, so that does help, at least.
There's also another team that's in the mix of hopefully getting back to an AFC championship game, and maybe we'll match up against the Kansas City Chiefs, maybe win that game. It's the Baltimore Ravens.
The leading candidate for MVP again.
And another one.
Man, be real slow comparing people to Lamar Jackson.
It's another one.
That's a multi-time MVP. That's Mr. Jackson.
Oh, he threw him away like a rag doll. Absolutely amazing. Oh, Lamar Jackson.
MVP, you can't touch this.
Lamar Jackson is in. 5 touchdown passes for Lamar.
That's a multi-time MVP. That's Mr. Jackson. Mr. Jackson.
Little jump pass touchdown.
Mr. Jackson.
Mr. Jackson.
How in the world? Name somebody else right now who can do that. Nobody.
That's Mr. Jackson.
I think he's going to be the MVP this year because I don't see this team struggling down.
Boy, you're really making some bold proclamations.
All right, hold on. Can I just, a year ago.
Way to step out there, brother.
More than a year ago, we were doing a show on NFL Network. It was before the season. They said, hey, make a bold prediction. And I said, Lamar Jackson's going to be the MVP. I got so much flack from our staff, kind of just giving it to me. Like, oh, is that really a bold prediction? I'm like, well, I don't know if it's not, but I think it's going to happen. And it did. And a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while. And I did a year ago. But I kind of felt like that could be the case again for him this season. He's been stellar. The numbers are better than each of the last other his previous 2 MVP seasons that he's had. So why not?
Well, let me break some other news on here. Guys, you're not going to get this hard-hitting analysis anywhere else, but they're really good at running the football.
Yes.
Whoa!
And it's more than just Lamar, right?
I'm just clickbait today. But no, look, potential Offensive Player of the Year candidate Derrick Henry has changed the opportunity both for Lamar Jackson in the run game, but also for Lamar Jackson in the pass game. Because they had 3 new offensive linemen ahead of the season, you knew things were going to look a little different, right? Like, is it going to be the same sort of types of run scrambles? Like, Lamar is a very special type of quarterback, so you need to have a very special type of offensive line. Well, as they folded it in and advanced in the season, being able to block for Derrick Henry, they're giving him his most yards before contact in his career, ladies and gentlemen. That is very nice. And what happens when you get a freight train going full speed? It becomes harder and harder to stop. So I'm looking at the opportunity in the run game, and now the defense, we always say this all the time, defense is process of elimination. So if I see this, then I know it can't be that or it can't be that. Well, when you see certain things with this team, you're like, well, I can't eliminate anything. It can still be everything.
And that's perfect. That dovetails into the other day, Mike Garafolo and I were interviewing on the Insiders Terrell Austin, the defensive coordinator for the Steelers. And I asked him, what's your priority, Lamar or Derrick? He said Derrick Henry. And that goes to show you what Derrick Henry has now done for the Ravens. We talk about the on-field production. Now this is consuming the preparation. And Terrell Austin is like, to Cynthia's point, we cannot let the freight train get rolling downhill because then that occupies too much of what you want to do. So they want to get to him early. But guess what? There's been a couple other teams in this division that have held him under 100 yards this season. And Lamar has 10 passing touchdowns and 0 picks. So this is what the pick your poison, is it going to be Hemlock or is it going to be Nerium in the tee to take you out? That's what it does for you. And this just opens up everything with this offense. Now, the Steelers do personnel-wise match up well. But again, this determines the flow of the offense and things like this, how it's going to work.
Would be a little better for the Steelers if they had Alex Highsmith, though.
Yeah.
Yes,
it would. A little easier to stop the freight train if you got more horses,
Right.
Just
What did Harbaugh say, though, before the season about Derrick Henry and workload?
Yeah, we're not going to give him 30 touches a game, but he's not that Derrick Henry.
29.
Yeah.
Just 29.
Apparently, there's probably more tread on those tires than I think the Ravens anticipated.
I want to know what it feels like to run and be that big and run that fast just once in my life. It's not going to happen.
It's wild. I saw Derrick Henry, we track that speed and 20, any of these players. Sometimes I get on the treadmill and just crank up the speed to see how fast I can go. And I go, these dudes have pads on and they're running so much faster than I can. Meanwhile, you got some early projections, the early games, I should say, from Cynthia. The only one I want to highlight here, Rams and Patriots, only because Steve.
I like New England. Look. The Rams are coming off a tough Monday night game, traveling across the country 3 hours earlier, and the Patriots are playing better. Cynthia, I also like the Browns getting better against the Saints.
Okay.
Good. I think the Browns win. You
All
see
right.
it.
As far as the late window games, Kansas City and Buffalo got that one circled on the screen. Here we go. We got a loss here for KC, according to you.
That's also a what happens when you put blankets over your head. It's also a that, which is very surprising, especially now. Note. If Spencer Brown is not playing, that does not stay the same.
Okay.
But Wanya Morris being out for that is a massive loss, especially when you got Greg Rousseau coming off that edge like a bat out of HE double hockey sticks.
The only other one that I will add, Cincinnati, you got them beating the Chargers, which is saying something considering how talented that defense is for Los Angeles. Sunday statement, what do you got for me?
Well, I said this before we heard the kind of meanness to the potential Jags staff, but I do have the Lions winning this game, winning their 8th straight. That would be the first time since 1934, which is ridiculous and very special. I'm sorry it would come at the loss of I never want people to lose their jobs, but I'm very happy for the Lions.
Don't worry, like when teams lose to the Panthers, that's when coaches lose their jobs as well. So they're not the Lions at least, are not.
They're not trying to do that, man.
No. So here's one.
Okay.
We didn't get to this game yet. Anthony Richardson returning to the starting lineup gets at least one touchdown. I don't know if it's going to come throwing or passing in a victory over the Jets. You know
That's
I love
the spicy
chaos,
part.
and that is spiciness right there.
I like where your head's at, and apparently you and I are on the same page for the Chargers and Bengals. Now keep in mind here, Los Angeles, their defense has been stellar. If they allow 20 or fewer points today, they'll become the first team since 1990 to do so in each of their first 10 games of the season. It ain't going to happen today.
What?
Oh, Joe Burrow is going to deliver. I think the Bengals win. I think he's got 2 touchdowns, and he's got 0 picks in this game. He was like, not having it. I know. The text thread for us will be burn it up today.
Hopefully this plays better today.
Enjoy the game.
Let's go, kitty cat.
Appreciate you guys watching Game Center. It starts in 2, 1. Oh, yeah, now.